So I think let's start the session. Requesting Mamata to kindly announce people outside to step in so that we can start. So now we would have the session on the digital excellence, how to achieve. And I would request our hostess again, Vidya, to come and kindly welcome the delegate speakers. Yep.
It's an absolute pleasure to introduce the eminent personalities adorning our dais to commence the session on Digital Excellence, How to Achieve. Let's give them a warm and enthusiastic welcome. I would like to request the session moderator, Mr. Sankar Ghosh, Chairman, CII Eastern Region Startup Task Force, and Managing Director, Accenture Technology Solutions Lead, Asia Pacific, Middle East and Africa. Please come up on the dais. Now may I request Mr. Sundaram, Director, AWS India, to kindly join us on the dais. Let me now request Mr. Sukumar Umapati, Enterprise Architect, Field CTO, Dell Technologies Limited, to come up on the dais. Our distinguished panelist lineup continues with Mr. Manjit Noyak, Jurisdictional Director, Software Technology Parks India, Kolkata. Welcome, Mr. Noyak. Requesting you to please join us on the dais. I would now request Mr. Debapriya Nandan, Senior Director, Cloud Sales, Oracle, India, to kindly join us on the dais. We are privileged to have Mr. Chiranjib Bhattacharya, CEO, Wizatech Informatics Private Limited. May I request you to kindly join us on the dais. Over to you, Mr. Ghosh, for taking forward the discussions of the session.
Good afternoon, everyone. After the lunch, always it becomes difficult to gather people, and I'm thankful to Sumit, Mamata, and rest of the delegates from CII to get people back. But we'll get started. So right at the inception, I would like to congratulate CII Eastern Region IT Committee for organizing 22nd ICT East. And this is truly a very relevant, very pertinent topic in terms of discussing reimagining business excellence through digital transformation. I would like to introduce myself before we proceed further. Of course, next 1 hour, we are going to dedicate talking about digital excellence, how to achieve. And I look after technology business, technology solutions for Accenture in growth markets. And me and my team, we help our clients to unleash their business potential, to make the digital transformation relevant for their business with tangible outcome by leveraging the next generation technology. So this topic is very close to my heart, and I'm privileged. It's truly my honor to have eminent panelists joining us today to talk about this important topic. And I would request them to briefly introduce themselves. We have Mr. Sundar Ram, who is Director, AWS India. We have Mr. Sukumar Umapati, Enterprise Architect and Field CTO, Dell Technologies Limited. We have Mr. Manjit Nayak. He is Jurisdictional Director, Software Technology Parks of India, and he operates out of Kolkata. We have Mr. Chiranjib Bhattacharya, who is Chief Executive Officer, Wizatech Informatics Private Limited. And we have Mr. Debapriya Nandan, who is Senior Director, Cloud Sales from Oracle. So I will start with Debapriya to request him to briefly introduce himself, and then we'll go this way. After that, Mr. Sundar would introduce, and thereafter we'll kind of cover the rest of the introduction before delving into the topic. Over to you, Devapriya.
Thank you. Hello. Yeah. Thank you, Shankar. A very warm welcome and a good afternoon to all of you. Uh, as a customary thing, again, Shumit, Mamata, and the whole committee, Sanjay da, Dipankar da, Shankar da, great job once again. I think another year we are doing it fantastic from the morning. Just to introduce myself, Devo Priyanandan. I work for Oracle India, based out of Calcutta. Almost over 17 years now, managing several roles, but currently I handle cloud sales, and I've done so many things other than that. But again, privileged to be here and look forward to a very engrossing 1 hour going ahead, and hopefully all of you gain out of this discussion. Thank you.
Requesting Mr. Sundar.
Yeah, thank you, Shankar. Thank you everybody for having me, and we have the unenviable task of keeping you awake after a nice lunch. It was a wonderful lunch. So, quick introduction. I've been in industry for about 30 years. Last 7 years has been in AWS. So my role as Director for Business Development includes helping customers migrate and modernize to the cloud, as well as handling a whole range of specialty products like AML, analytics, and so on. And would be delighted to share my learnings and learn from the other panelists in terms of what digital transformation has in store for all of us. So yeah, thank you.
I welcome both of you to the session. Over to Mr. Manjit.
Hello. Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Manjit Naik, Judicial Director of STPI Calcutta. I look after the entire West Bengal activities in terms of information technology, IT, and electronics activities. And I have in government more than 25 years experience, and having said that, I've covered many states like from UP to Himachal Pradesh to West Bengal, and we are trying to promote to the software industry as well as the hardware industry across the country. Thank you.
Thank you. I welcome you to the session. Over to you, Mr. Umapati.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sugumar. I am a field CTO and enterprise architect with Dell Technologies. My responsibility in Dell Technologies is to help customers like yourself get to the outcome as soon as possible, right? So that's what I try, helping customers get to the outcome by doing multi-cloud strategies, digital transformation, and security and AI. So in this discussion, I'm really honored to be here and to learn from the peers who are sitting here and to share some of the insights from some of the experiences that I have. Looking forward to this conversation.
Welcome, Mr. Umapati. Requesting Mr. Bhattacharya.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for being here. My sincere thanks to CII. Really honored to be here. So I lead an IT systems integration and services firm called Tech Informatics as their CEO. I've been in the industry for over 33 years now, having spent years in companies like HCL and Oracle earlier. I'm also a visiting faculty of strategy in certain institutes like Great Lakes, Chennai, and IIM Udaipur. Thank you.
Thank you. I welcome you to the session. Okay, so next 1 hour, we are going to devote on this digital excellence topic. And apart from my Accenture role, I also chair the startup task force of CII Eastern region. And I get to work with startups locally within India in Eastern region. And as part of my Accenture role, I also get to work with global startups to drive open innovation. And of course, some of those discussions will happen as part of this topic. But going back to the topic, digital excellence, and if we think through carefully, in my mind, digital excellence is all about achieving business excellence through digital transformation. And if I put that with that simplicity, but there are a lot of nitty-gritties which are there, and that is something which organizations need to take care about. Now, I recall from Accenture, every year we publish something called Technology Vision, which is a bit of 3 to 5 years ahead in terms of what is going to happen, how technology is going to shape the business world. And I recollect January 2014, almost 10 years back. As part of Accenture Tech Vision, we talked about, the theme was, every business is going to be digital business. And think about it, it is 10 years back. Since then, many enterprises globally, they have embarked on the digital transformation journey. One thing I would like to also mention, that there is something called disruption indicator. It is function of multiple things, but it talks about how turbulence, how disruption is getting created in all the industries. And if I want to provide the data point, between 2011 to 2016, that disruption index grew by 4%. 4%. And 2017 to 2022, last 5 years, because every 5 years it gets repeated, 2017 to 2022, can you guess what has been the growth of disruption? Anyone? Any quick guess from the audience? Because we really do not want this to be monologue. We want to make this session as a dialogue. Any quick guess from anyone? Okay, so let me provide the perspectives. I talked about 4%, 2011 to 2016, and 2017 to 2022, the disruption index grew by 200%. So you can imagine 50 times higher disruption which organizations are facing. And this morning, one of the panelists, as part of the inauguration session, talked about future shock. So this is truly that we are dealing with, most of the enterprises are dealing with a future which is very different from the environment in which they have been nurtured or they have been designed to operate in. And this environment is going to be very different. Now, having said that, as I said, 10 years back, we predicted that every business is going to be digital business. And during pandemic, we have seen significant acceleration about this digital transformation as well. But still, last year, precisely 8 months back, when Gartner did the CXO survey, one of the questions which they included in the interview, they interviewed close to 500 CXOs, 300 of them CEOs across the globe. The question was, what do you think about digital transformation, the impact which it has created in your organization to achieve the business excellence, to realize the business outcome? And guess what? Majority of them, they said they have not been able to achieve the intended business outcome. And of course, few of them, they said they have been able to achieve, but partially. Now think about it, the digital transformation is becoming mature and mature, with more and more hundreds of enterprises, traversing the journey. So why CXOs, CEOs are saying that they have not been able to achieve the full benefit? And if we, get into the underlying details, the underlying question is, how many of these organizations, through the digital transformation, have been able to create a new revenue stream attached to the digital journey, new revenue stream? How many of these organizations have been able to transform and redefine their customer experience and, of course, their employee experience? How many of them they have been able to achieve the operational excellence in terms of assuming the industry leader, ability to take or, create a business edge over their competition. And last but not the least, how digital transformation have been able to provide the business resiliency, the business or enterprise agility, business assurance, and most importantly, the business innovation. So exactly these are the underlying questions which are bothering, the CDOs, CEOs, CFOs of the world, and of course CIOs. And some of those pertinent aspects, which are definitely underlying objectives of the digital transformation, digital excellence, we are going to discuss. So why organizations have not been able to get the digital, the incentive, right? The digital excellence. Someone also defines the digital dividend. Interesting term, but we are going to talk about it. So with that note, I would request Mr. Sundar to throw some light, because from his organization, he would have seen hundreds of organizations. They have traversed the journey to cloud. And based on that journey, Mr. Sundar, what is your advice and how did you see that the top trend of digital excellence which are prevalent? Over to you.
Yeah, thank you for that. See, I think it's important to understand, since Dada spoke about how, the disruption went up 50x, it's important to understand what's driving some of that, right? Because a lot of the excellence comes out of understanding what is happening and why it's happening. All too often, we go from what's happening to what's next without necessarily understanding the why part. So I wanted to spend a few minutes on that. Some of the trends that we have seen. Now, we are seeing that while revenues are growing at a certain rate for companies, their digital volumes, the transaction volumes are going through the roof comparatively. And this is happening in industry after industry. And it's important to understand what's behind that and how that is in turn driving technology choices and forcing customers to think differently. So if I look at that, there are 4 or 5 underlying trends that we have seen. I think first and foremost is where across industries, we have seen people coming down the pyramid of value chain, the customer segments, to try and address the next segment, the next segment, the next segment. And the size of the product starts coming down accordingly. So if you look at shampoo, for example, used to be sold in full bottles, and then it started getting sold as sachets for the next set of customers in the market. I was in Mother Dairy, etc. yesterday, and they're talking about how increasingly tractors are not being purchased because you're going to only use it for harvesting and for seeding. The rest of the time, you don't need it, so why not take it on rental? Which means it's not a single purchase, but multiple people renting the same vehicle at different points in time in the course of the year. If you look at, let's say, in the case of financial services, 10 years ago, if you wanted to get into the capital markets as an individual investor, you needed a minimum of, let's say, a 1 lakh entry amount to get in as a wealth management portfolio. People like Zerodha have brought that down to as low as 1,000 rupees. And now it's going to go down further to 100 rupees in all likelihood. And it's no surprise that Zerodha, probably because they are cloud native from day one, they have cornered a third of the entire financial, the profits in that particular subsegment of the capital markets, which is the AMC space. 1/3 going to a single company because they were cloud native from day one, and therefore they had a very different cost structure. I think that's the first thing. The second thing is a lot of processes which were very human in nature have got digitized during COVID. And post-COVID, people are fully willing to accept that. People didn't want to pay by getting an insurance agent to come home. They were more than happy to pay electronically. You wanted to, for example, let's say, get your medical checkups done. You didn't need to bring back papers. It was being picked up automatically by the insurer from the path lab. So what happened was processes which were heavily manual, for no change in revenue, the digital quotient went up, which meant the number of transactions went up dramatically. And then, of course, connected products, it has just exploded in the market, whether you're talking electric vehicles, whether you're talking connected vehicles, security cameras in your homes and whatnot. Now, for example, my conversations are so different. When I talk to an EV manufacturer, it's about how can you help me increase the number of kilometers per charge on my battery management system. They are no longer talking to me about can you migrate these 3 applications to the cloud. So it's a very different conversation. And last but not the least, the India stack. It has completely changed the way digitization has happened. Today, India, by most accounts, is anywhere between 35 to 40% of global digital transactions. People who are expats living abroad, Indians, when they come back here, I recently hosted a couple of them from our AWS headquarters, they were shocked to see the change. I mean, they were standing in line at the airport and I was bypassing them using my DigiYatra. And they were like, what the heck, I can't imagine doing this in the US. So all of these changes have contributed to the fact that the volumes have gone up tremendously, while the revenues have only inched up in a much more marginal fashion. If I look at today, therefore, the companies who have been the most successful in traversing this journey, it has been characterized by 3 things. One, they were very clear on what they wanted to achieve. For example, insurance companies who said, we want to increase our business coming through digital channels from 10% to 50%. It's a very clear mandate. Somebody else saying, a tire manufacturer, for example, told us that their mandate has been to double production with only a 60% increase in capacity in the next 5 years. That's a very clear objective. So first and foremost is people who have a crystal clear objective. Second is people who have invested in building the skills and the governance that will have to go with these kind of projects. And third is just having a clear understanding of this economic equation and therefore focusing on unit economics rather than being bogged down on sticker prices of projects. Because if you think about it, if the number of loans you're giving is going up by 3x, whereas the value is only gone up by 50%, what you should be focusing on is not so much whether my IT cost went up. Of course, it will go up because your volume of transactions has gone up far faster than revenue. But is your cost per loan coming down? Is your cost per car service coming down? Is your cost per health checkup coming down? That's what we need to be looking at. And companies who have understood this equation, they don't get bogged down 6 months into the project wondering, hey, the costs are different to what we expected. It's because they started with the wrong metric, the wrong baseline. People who have understood this financial equation and have learned how to handle the sachet-sized product phenomenon, which is happening very quietly, right? I mean, it's not like happening with fanfare where people will recognize it. It's happening under the covers. People who recognize this, they are the ones who have really excelled, and by any number of such examples we have seen. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I picked up the cloud native, and this is something truly a disruptor. Most of the organizations who are disrupting, they are born in the cloud. And cloud native is helping what Sundar nicely articulated in terms of how the cost per transaction is going down, whether it's cost per car service, cost per loan is going down, and that's helping them to become more and more agile, more and more nimble, and get to the volume which is truly required by any business. And that's what I talked about in terms of the business resilience. I would now turn to Mr. Bhattacharya. So from a system integration perspective, and we have been talking about that digital excellence. From system integration perspective, since you provide business solution to multiple clients, multiple organizations, from the system integration perspective, what do you think that organizations they need to ensure while traversing to this digital transformation journey? Over to you, Mr. Bhattacharya.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ghosh. So, thank you. It's such a wonderful question. So, to do that, in my opinion, the first thing is to appreciate that digital strategy has to be always integrated with an enterprise's core strategy. These two cannot be separate. So, first step is to understand and appreciate that digital strategy has to be aligned with the organization's core strategy. Secondly, it's important to understand that smart connected devices in this digital era, what it has done, it has blurred industry boundaries. And competition no longer is restricted between products. Products have evolved into platforms, and therefore competition exists between platforms, out of which a systems integration firm is only a small component. That's the second thing. And third thing is following the customer journey. Instead of only focusing on cost control and factors like that, it's important to focus on customer journey. Now, having said that, the other thing that appears relevant in this digital era is the fact that emerging technologies keep coming. So we see social, mobile, analytics, cloud, IoT, blockchain, AI, one coming after the other. And there is no doubt that they have changed our lives and they are constantly changing things. The good news is that you need not master each and every technology, but it's important that as a systems integrator, you get inspired by the fact that these things genuinely are changing our lives and they can actually change customers' business goals. And the sources of inspiration are also there. Sources of inspiration should be unlimited data that is available, unlimited connectivity that is available by virtue of mobility as well as IoT, and unlimited computing power that is also available in today's digital era. And once you do that, you would also appreciate that there are essentially two components here we are talking of. One is digitizing. When you digitize, you enhance your operational efficiency. And the other is digital. When you do digital, you actually work towards creating innovative solutions for your customers. Now, once you appreciate digitizing your operational efficiency and digital innovation for your customers, you would realize that essentially there are 4 steps out here which need to be possibly implemented. First is reimagining your business, which would cover scope, business models, and platforms. Second would be re-evaluating your value chain, which would cover your R&D, innovation, as well as omni-channel operations. Third would be reconnecting with your customers, where you need to focus on acquiring and engaging and retaining customers. And fourth would be rebuilding your organization through efficient hiring and retaining that manpower. So in the journey of a systems integrator, in a nutshell, if you take the example of an IT systems integrator who wishes actually to take advantage of the digital age and wishes to create value in the customer place and also move upwards in the value chain, it's very important to understand your core skills and strengthen the core. So if you're strong in infrastructure and networks and data centers, etc., you need to identify how you can move upwards the value chain. So which is the technology that would be in demand in the customer place? Would you get resources for the technology? If yes, then you can move up. So a very simple way to do is to imagine the IT landscape as infrastructure, platform, and applications. So an IT systems integration company has to understand that platform is possibly something closest to his infrastructure skills. So start building expertise on databases and middleware. And there you see if emerging technologies can value add, like autonomous databases, and transform the customer's existing installed base of database. Then move up to analytics implementation and see if you can create value for the customer. And at each stage, keep building cloud competencies. And once you do that, you are an expert in database, middleware, and analytics. Then try and do ERP consulting through SaaS models and try to see how emerging technologies like AI can value add. So I think in a nutshell, this is the way systems integrations and integrators can think about this, their journey in the digital era.
Thank you, Mr. Bhattacharya. And I picked up the business strategy because digital transformation is truly need to be aligned with business strategy. And thanks for articulating with the example that, if someone is very strong in infrastructure, how they can, plan their journey in terms of, further upwards, infrastructure to database to middleware before getting into application. Thank you for that. Now I'll turn to Mr. Umapati, and I would like to focus on computing world because all of us, we know that with the advent of quantum computing, lot of benefits which are coming in. Today, many technologies, whether you talk about metaverse, AI, machine learning, deep learning, or even Gen AI, it's not possible without the significant advancement which has happened in the computing world. But with quantum computing coming into picture, while there's a boon in terms of promoting and making this technology work, democratizing this technology to give this to the hands of the larger ecosystem, more number of enterprises, it has also has got its underlying tremendous risk in terms of this enterprise security. So I would like to seek your point of view that what should be your advice to the organizations who are planning or who are midway through in the digital transformation journey, how they need to think about enterprise security as part of their digital transformation journey. Over to you.
Great question. In fact, very relevant, because today's, this is going to be something going to be relevant even for the future as well, because technology trends keep changing. And like what Mr. Bhattacharya was highlighting, the new innovations around, say, IoT, blockchain, quantum, or any of these things are going to be evolving. But what is fundamental to all of this is your data, right? And with digital transformation, it's all revolving around the data. Today, finding where all is your data sitting is the biggest challenge most organizations face, right? Finding places of where the data is sitting and how many copies of it, who has access to it, and what sort of purpose is it being used for, are the things which actually is a bigger challenge for most organizations today. So right from getting the discovery done to storing and processing that information, data, and getting information out of it and analyzing to get more insights out of it, and getting an intelligence out of that, right? Which is where all the AI and Gen AI are going to help you move towards. Now, with evolving trends around different capabilities that are coming through, what is very critical is the data that you collected or stored in the past does not go waste. You are not going to get newer data every time. The same data gets used for multiple purposes, and newer data keeps coming. So having a relevant security strategy around just getting the right amount of access to the right level of people, because it is very important that the intended purpose of the data is being provided and you are not restricting the access to the data to the right people. So having an end-to-end security, zero trust, and ability to have a framework around all the connected points. There were discussions in the morning as well as in this panel as well. IoTs, edge devices, end-user computing, mobile computing, right? Cloud computing, and quantum as well. Wherever your workloads are going to run, all of these are going to be definitely required for an organization to be digitally complete. It is not possible to have one and choose the other over it, right? So you will need to be able to use all of those capabilities for the best of your organization's digital excellence. And when you do that, having a security framework in place that ensures that the right level of access is given to the right level of people, right data is available at the speed at the particular use case is required to make use of it is extremely important as well. So in essence, if you really look at what we are moving towards is a well-connected infrastructure across different places, different platforms, different applications and use cases. So all of this knitted together with an ability to have control and security right from the source of the data to the entire network landscape to where it is really getting consumed. And gone are the days where data sources were very limited, right? So all we had was a web and an app layer. Today, data sources right from social media to IoT sensors to different other workloads that come through, right? So how do you ensure that the entire endpoints, hundreds of them in a typical landscape, how do you ensure security is being followed across? It can't be something implemented as a product or implemented as a, deployed as a product to watch it, right? So you need to have something that is inbuilt, intrinsic security that has been built within and baked within the overall solution in itself. It is very critical to not look at it as a separate product and look at it more as a framework and implementing it throughout the life cycle or the access points that are there within your organization, right? From the trusted workplaces to trusted infrastructure to the trusted connected devices. It's important to have a framework around this. That's my thought process on this.
Thank you so much. Glad that you touched upon the data part of it, because very often we realize that organizations, they revamp their process to get to an accelerated enterprise agility in terms of, embracing DevOps, embracing, safe agilist, that whole agile DevOps process. But, the data, they realize that data is the piece which moves at the slowest speed, and that doesn't help unlocking the business value. So glad that you kind of touched upon that particular aspect in the backdrop of security. Now I'll turn around to Mr. Naik. So Software Technology Parks of India is playing a very crucial role in terms of creating an ecosystem wherein the IT and ITS enabled services in India, they're thriving to achieve significantly higher increasing software exports year after year. One thing I also talked about right at the beginning, that most of the organizations, they really challenge to create an innovation culture through the digital transformation. And open innovation, embracing or embedding open innovation in the digital transformation can be best done by helping the startup, inviting the startup to get their niche offering. And startups in India, they need to get that benefit of the ecosystem. So from the STPI, from the policy enablement perspective, my request to you, Mr. Naik, that how you are seeing that STPI is planning to continue to play a very critical role in creating that ecosystem for the startups, so that open innovation can happen, it can get accelerated, and that's the way ultimately the organizations, enterprises will get the benefit from the digital transformation to imbibe, to embed the business innovation culture. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosh. It's really, I heard from the eminent speakers regarding digital transformations. These digital transformations lead to the digital economy, and ultimately it will lead to our vision of 5 trillion economy of the country, right? If you think about digital transformations, and since STPI inception from 1991, we have witnessed into the export from the country. If I talked about 1992, the country export was only 52 crores of IT export, which is lead to now into 2022, it's almost 15 lakh crore of export, or if you talk about the billion, then it will be almost 180 billion of US dollar. So the changes of the export from the country in last 3 decades, it tremendously it has been impact, and the growth has been witnessed, right? So similarly, we are also monitoring since beginning of the electronics export activities. That is called, though we are STPI, Software Technology Parks of India, there is a scheme under Ministry of Electronics and IT, which is looking after the IT, growth of the IT and promotion of the IT. Similarly, we have a scheme called EHTP scheme, Electronics Hardware Technology Park, which is monitoring the also electronics activities, production of electronics and goods from the country and exporting to the abroad, right? The similar concept, and this scheme is also continuing. So why I'm just describing these 2 schemes, it was created on 3 decades ago, right? But subsequently the changes happening in the across the globe, and the country is witnessing that, and subsequently digital transformation happening. So 2015, Digital India movement has been started by our Honorable Prime Ministers, and which is lead to the totally focus on the digital transformations, and which is the 9 pillar of Digital India movement. If you see, then there is a 9 pillar, out of which STPI particularly focusing on 2 pillars especially, which is manufacturing of electronics and also IT for jobs. So if I talk about the digital transformation, it is happening from the city to the village level. The penetration of the internet to the rural level is vital, and which is government is totally focusing, and now it's already happened, the digital penetration to the village level. So our smartphone activities, all the transaction, which is now the application we are talking about, the requirement of the common man citizens, it's all smartphone driven, computer driven, internet driven. Without the digitalization, without the penetration of the internet to the end user, probably it will have a great challenges for the society, which lead to the a reform is required, which is already we are in that progress, right? Now coming to the different scheme of STPI under the Ministry of Electronics and IT, he is the prime driven of the digital economy or the Digital India movement. Basically, we are also witnessing to the different scheme time to time government has launching, and we are witnessing to that, we are regulating that, and we are trying to support to the total ecosystems. I can talk one IT for job, that is a IBPS scheme. Long back it has been floated, and almost 100 city has been taken the benefit of that IBPS scheme. It has a scheme meant for 48,000 roughly the workplace, and the seat has been allotted to the 100 cities, and the budget layout is almost 500 crores. So this has been, it's a basic motto to create the job in the Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, so our young generation can get into these digital activities, and the job employment opportunity will become in even the Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. So it's starting from the broadband connectivity to the job creation to digital migration, it's all linked to the entire domains of digital transformation, digital economy. So if you talk about another scheme, which is just now Mr. Ghosh told, we are also working from the startup activities. The NGIS scheme, we have NGIS scheme, different, as I told, time to time government is coming with a different scheme, depend upon the opportunity, depend upon the market demand, depend upon the technical changes, depend upon the startup movement, right? So it's called a new scheme, NGIS scheme, Next Generation Incubation Scheme. This is a scheme, again, we are trying to give the 300 startups with a budget layout of 95 crores. And we are trying to support the startup ecosystem, which is not only the funding support, it is a totally entire ecosystem is, the stakeholder is coming from the, the academic sides, mentoring sides, then the infrastructure side, the venture capital sides, and the fab lab, the labs, and different equipment, and the modern amenities we are creating in almost all these places across the country where the entire ecosystem is going to take the benefit of the schemes. So I mean to say that the time is going changes. We are also, STPI is adopting the new schemes, which is definitely helping to the IT ecosystems, and particularly in the innovation sector and the startup domain, those who are now working the niche area, those who are working the specific innovative solution, we are trying to support them. We are trying to give the funding support, mentoring support, infrastructure support. In all the angle, we are trying to give the support, starting from the ideation stage to the prototype stage to the business commercial stage. We are giving support to the entire ecosystems. So entire the country, STPI is creating a lot of value in terms of growth of the IT, and growth of the electronics industry. And we are looking forward to your, again, interest in the particular domain. And we are here to support you. And we are looking for further growth in the country, in the specific in the IT and electronics domain. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Naik. And it's clearly heartening to hear, and those of you from the audience who are from startups community, it would be a great encouragement, and you can reach out to Mr. Naik. However, I think one thing I picked up that you talked about inclusivity, how the digital transformation benefit is traversing from city to urban to rural area, because unless the citizen, they are getting the benefit, business to consumer, B2C segment of large enterprises will also suffer in terms of getting the benefit from the digital transformation. So very well said, thank you. Now I would like to turn it over to my friend Devapriyo. And I know that helping enterprises to traverse their journey to the cloud, not only for the private enterprises, but he is also very active in terms of helping the public services and the government companies to realize the benefit. Having said that, many private organizations also, they have not realized the full benefit of their business outcome from the digital transformation. Based on your experience, how do you feel, what do you think that organizations who are getting the success, what are the things they are doing differently? And therefore, what's your advice to the organizations, enterprises that they need to ensure while traversing through the digital transformation to keep this aligned to their overall business strategy? Over to you.
Thank you, Shankata. This is an extremely important point. How do you strategize your digital progression, your digital transformation? One thing I think we should keep in mind, and while thinking about the strategy for digital transformation, is digital obsolescence. This is something which has to be kept in mind. I'll just give you a small example. We are talking a little serious, I think, so I'll make it a little lighter. Long back, in one of my earlier organizations which I used to work, we sold a Sun server to a steel plant. I'm not naming that steel plant for obvious reason. The biggest problem they got into in buying that Sun server was they did away with the burrows that they had, and they had a whole hall of this size which was housing that burrows machine. Now the bigger problem they had, not in installing that Sun server, but what to do with that hall. Later I heard they converted into a canteen. Several years later, when that organization started looking at cloud, the next problem that they faced is they're not being able to explain to their management why they need so many people to maintain so many servers. So digital obsolescence is something which has to be kept in mind. That is one. And to explain that, let me explain to you in little more detail what digital obsolescence happens. It is happening today because data is becoming, and data is the fuel we have heard for a lot of time. Data is becoming the object of desire. It's the object of demand. That is where the whole change is happening. If you really delve within yourselves, I'm sure all of you are doing a lot of this stuff and you're all learned people here. Something which is bothering you the most is one is obviously your products, what you are going to sell in future, what is your user community telling you, what is your business telling you to do. You have to now decide how will you do that. In next 10 years, will your marketing or sales completely move to social cloud or the social arena, or it will remain partly brick and mortar and partly internet based? Like Sundar was talking sometime back, banks and insurance companies have grown multifold not because they have grown their branches that many times. How did it happen? It happened because they became digital. So the moment you become digital, the quality of your data that you pump to your salespeople on the ground is extremely important. So it starts off with, and Shankata talked of that some time back, the data at source which gets generated, how do you purify that? How do you store that? How do you ensure that data is then given to the salespeople on the ground or your teams who actually go and sell the product or even teams who are manufacturing, doing the production planning? Do they have the right view of the right data? So if you are emerging, going on this journey of digital excellence, one, you have to be very careful about how and where you are storing the data, what use you are putting it to, how you are putting it used to. Secondly, as you move ahead, you will see, and today even the Honorable Minister was talking of this, AI. Sometimes AI looks cliched, but I think AI has now got into everything. A very small example, within our organization, Oracle, we are about 1.5 lakh people. A lot of stuff that we do internally, the integration that we have done across various agencies, various divisions within Oracle, they were multifarious. They were businesses which were getting acquired. They become seamlessly integrated. The data became a single point source of reference. And our travel bills started getting cleared online without manual intervention. We enjoyed a lot. The experience that we got out of that is that we got saved of a lot of tribulations at the end of the day as to how we manage our internal back office. So this is another thing one has to keep in mind while planning this. So if you look at the strategy, one is obviously, now before I come to that, another big thing is, do we still look at a COBOL programmer? No. Do we still look at a Python programmer? No. We have gone much beyond that. If we visit we visit colleges, we visit universities to recruit youngsters, we have a complete different KRA or a JD for them to recruit them. You will not get certain older technologies today anymore, and that means your current installation or the installation which you are planning, which you don't see a future beyond 5 years, may become extremely costly for you to maintain. So you must look at what's happening now and what's going to happen in the next few years' time, again through the point of digital obsolescence. So one is obviously that the point, if I have to summarize this, what are the things we have to keep in mind? One is obviously manpower. Second is innovation. When it comes to innovation, what kind of innovation? I talked of it. How is your business planning to be done? Is it going to be online completely? Are you going to do more with less? Will there be a reduction in manpower? Will you have to repurpose manpower for that matter? What kind of age limits are you looking at? Today, digital native companies, somebody was talking of young companies. They have people coming in Bermudas to office. A lot of legacy companies don't even think that. But 5 years down the line, will you have that same type of legacy manpower with you? Maybe not. You will have people who would come up with earrings in their ears, 10 or 12 of them, and then attend office. They would like to have an environment which is completely different. They would like to work on a technology which is completely gives them the kick at the end of the day. I'll give you another example. There is a lot of work happening at the ministry level and at various FPOs, there are farmer cooperatives, as to entice back farmers' sons, their next generations, back to agriculture by giving them an option of using technology. Combine harvesters and tractors are there, but beyond that, can AI be used for soil type monitoring, for infections in plants, even predicting rainfall, even quality of seeds that needs to be used, even evacuating produces from the places of production to marketplaces? Are we looking at that? The more, and I know a few of them, people who have come back from their, giving up their cushy IT jobs and got back into farming because they have seen technology helping them to get, do things better. So that's the kick. So obviously there is another part which is the innovation. Other than manpower, digital obsolescence and innovation, these are the some things we have to look at. Last but not least, today the world is all pervious. It's an open market. You have to talk, so the word open is extremely important. Select technologies or plan your digital transformation drive in such a manner that you can talk to various types of technologies, various other organizations. And to do that, there are various tools and tackles that are available. You will have to keep up on the top of the technology curve to do so. There is a lot of experience which we have had because we have been asked. I can give you my example. When we meet customers, we are asked, what are the plans for the future? How do you plan to be open and obviously secured? So these are the few points. Please keep it in mind as you go about your work. Look at the type of manpower. It's extremely important what you're going to get in future. Look at what is the technology that you have today and where is the obsolescence that's coming into it. These are the few things I think Shankar would drive the digital transformation for the future.
Thank you. And glad that you touched upon one important aspect which we have not talked through so far is the talent. How the transformation of talent is also required as part of the digital transformation to continuously harnessing the value. And the fact you mentioned that how the emerging technology can be used in every industry, and especially for a country like India, agriculture, that example which you have provided, how AI is relevant to help them, improving the crop productivity is a great way to give back to society, and the democratizing technology to do good for the larger people. So thank you. I would like to turn to Mr. Sundar now, because many organizations, they have already migrated their workloads to cloud. Now, while journey to cloud is important, journey in the cloud is also equally important. So I would like to understand, from him, the huge experience which he had in terms of helping multiple organizations to traverse through their respective journey. What are the top lessons learned, while doing it? Because that can prove invaluable for the audience as well as the other organizations to emulate while they are traversing their journey as well. So over to you.
Thanks, Shankarda. So 3-4 things. I think the first and foremost we have seen is companies which have been successful, they have managed to bridge this gap between IT and business in a way that they get business people to be a little more educated on IT and vice versa. Because, see, in many organizations, we have seen there is a significant gap because IT has an excellent understanding of the tech stack and so on, but are not always able to justify projects or investments in language that business understands. And the reverse, because business doesn't understand the full potential of technology, they often tend to have knee-jerk reactions. Somebody comes to a conference, hears what somebody did, and then goes back and says, hey, why aren't we doing the same thing? And then people are running around, scurrying around, trying to do something to keep somebody happy. So I think the first is, and the onus is on vendors like ourselves and SIs like ourselves to help to bridge that gap in terms of making both sides understand each other. I think that's one. The second big learning has been that, see, originally most of the movement to the cloud was primarily a lift and shift, which was driven by 3 or 4 considerations. Either it was lack of skills to continue running things on-prem. 2, it was driven by a view that it'll be a lot cheaper to run on cloud. 3, because in the wake of COVID, when you had a DR, but you couldn't physically access your DR, and because of that, you can't start up your DR, then having the DR was pointless. I mean, we had any number of companies who had this problem. You got business continuity set up somewhere in Hyderabad, your data center somewhere in Bombay or in Delhi, but you can't access the DR because of the lockdown. So then what did we really achieve? So thoughts about future-proofing the business and business resilience, that drove it. But now what we are seeing increasingly is that organizations are recognizing that each of them, if they have to move to cloud, it has to be for different reasons. Now, Seat Tires, for example, which is one of our top customers, all in on cloud, and they have talked a lot eloquently about why they started by moving their ERP to cloud. And the main reason for that was they wanted to free up people who could then go out and do enablement of smart factories, building analytical solutions to predict the price of rubber, which is their single largest input cost. That's where they wanted their focus. So there it was driven by a need to innovate, and moving things to the cloud freed up people to go off and do this innovation. There are other people who move because some large application is coming to end of life and they've decided to use that as an inflection point to get to the next level of modernization. For example, a very large dealer management system that we are doing for an automotive company now, it's replacing a 15, 20-year-old legacy application. The primary driving factor is that the car industry has significantly changed. People now complete 70% of the digital of the buying journey on a phone before they physically walk into the dealer for the first time. Whereas 10 years ago, people started the journey by coming and visiting multiple dealers. That world has changed. The older application just could not take that level of dramatic change, so it had to be rebuilt from scratch. So each organization should figure out why they are going to do cloud/digitization, and then which pattern best suits them. Now, we have seen people who have said, let's keep our core systems as they are and build net new applications on the cloud to start with. People like HDFC Life, for example, they went down that path. They did move their ERP, etc., to the cloud as well, but they started by building digital journeys and analytics on the cloud. Whereas we saw people like Seat Tires, for example, where they moved their core systems on day one to the cloud. And then we saw others who said, let's take that core application and take out component at a time and rebuild those on the cloud and steadily shrink the core such that it becomes a small system of record. So Tata Sky, which is now called Tata Play, for example, they went down that path. So it's important for each organization to recognize which pattern suits them best, and the duty is on vendors and advisors like ourselves to help, to identify the best pattern for any given customer. And the last point I would make is that the more people understand how digitization and cloud is going to change the economics of the company, the better it is. Otherwise, this usually becomes the biggest stumbling block. We see customers who have saved a lot on manpower outside of IT because they digitize processes, which are business processes. I'm not talking IT processes, I'm talking business processes. But in the process, IT cost goes up, but the human cost elsewhere has come down, or at least the opportunity cost of having had to hire that many people has come down. So unless somebody looks at it in totality and looks at unit costs, this thinking will not change, which means there will always be a battle with the CFO saying, hey, earlier you were 5% of total cost, why are you 6% now? Yes, I went up by 1%, but I cut something else by 4%. So unless that level of nuanced understanding is there, this problem always continues. And one last point I would make is, one of the big lessons we learned in this entire journey is that we kind of assumed that organizations which were builders by nature, which means companies who build everything for themselves, would continue to stay builders. And companies which were used to being buyers of technology, which means they buy ready-made apps rather than build them, would continue to stay that way. We could not have been further from the truth, because we've seen digital native companies which used to be builders now buying ready-made applications for certain portions of their value chain where they don't see a benefit in building it themselves. Like you want an ERP or you want a standardized call center application, why would you want to build it yourself? And on the flip side, we have seen companies like Axis Bank, for example, who have conducted multiple hackathons with us where they have gone out and developed any number of net new applications, customer-facing applications, agent-facing applications, Salesforce-facing applications, which generate value add for them, where they've not bought that application as a ready-made application. So we have seen that line which kind of divides buyers and builders starting to sort of move considerably in any given organization. So the learning there for you, therefore, would be to think about where do you see A, competitive advantage, B, where do you see the ease of change vis-a-vis the competitive advantage that you can get. Is it worthwhile building it? I mean, one is to say, will you get a competitive advantage? Yes, but is it worthwhile to build it given the effort involved, etc.? And take a far more nuanced decision. And then remember that you still have to integrate all of this. So rather than go blindly and say, okay, I'll buy or I'll build, a more nuanced choice we have seen emerging a lot in the last couple of years. So those would be the top ones.
Thank you so much, Sundar. And you introduced a couple of interesting aspects in terms of technology debt, because very often that is neglected. And, we often see the organizations, they go to the modernization only when they realize that, okay, that system is already out of life. but that's not the way to disrupt or create competitive edge. Thanks for that. I would like to now focus on one thing which we have not discussed so far, is that digital transformation, what are the things which we need to measure and track? Because this is where very often the organizations, they find themselves that, they have not been measuring, and we all know we get what we measure. So my question to Mr. Bhattacharya, that as part of the digital transformation, what are the important metrics which organization should set it up with a continuous mindset that this is something which they want to get, and if that is aligned to the business value creation, how those, the metrics are aligned to their business strategy? Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosh. Great question. So, firstly, it would be important to appreciate that it is not only about digital transformation. It's about transforming our business to the next level, taking the customer's business to the next level, and that should be the objective, instead of objective being technology for technology's sake. Now, having said that, quick example of how GE Digital actually failed to achieve the kind of digital transformation which they had planned. So their plan was to launch a cloud platform called Predix, and integrating data analytics, sensors and applications, and allowing partners to develop applications on that, and allowing customers to make best use of the Predix platform. Now the objective was to actually gain control over the industrial Internet of Things market, just like similar to Microsoft with the help of an operating system. The objective was to create a gatekeeper to the IoT market through Predix and build outcome-based contracts also using Predix. Now that, while the vision was great and it was actually a wonderful plan drafted by GE, but ultimately it failed. So it fails because of multiple reasons, because of lack of buy-in from customers and internal buy-in of leaders leading the traditional business, customers not convinced and therefore not sharing data, the lack of ability to reskill very quickly, and internal communication and articulation of the organization goals. And hence the importance of tracking and measuring, as you rightly pointed out. So in my opinion, I think one should define key performance indicators very clearly and implement certain KPIs in a digital transformation journey. So when we talk of KPIs, basically we need to think about what would be the possible outcomes, and who will execute, and how to execute. So when we talk of possible outcomes, we can define KPIs like enterprise KPIs and customer KPIs. And when we talk about who would implement, we can have workplace KPIs as well as partner and ecosystem KPIs. And when we talk of how to execute, definitely we need to look at the digital tools and technologies in order to measure and create productivity KPIs. So the ultimate goal of any kind of digital transformation obviously should be enhanced customer experience leading to shareholder value. So when you talk of shareholder value, there would be value drivers as well as cost drivers. The value drivers would cover this customer and enterprise KPIs, and the cost drivers actually would include the other KPIs, like the productivity and tools and technologies KPIs, and partner and ecosystems KPIs, and workplace KPIs. Now, at the same time, another way of looking at shareholder value would be looking at basically three elements. One is revenue growth, the other is operating margins, third would be capital efficiency. If you talk of revenue growth, you have tangible as well as intangible factors. The intangible factors would cover leadership, innovation, vision, etc. Tangible factors, of course, would include the digital solutions, innovative solutions, business models, omni-channel that you actually deliver. Similarly, when you look at operating margins, obviously you'll have to look at the costs. So there would be direct costs, costs of automation, cost of supply chain management. Indirect costs would cover your possibly selling and administrative overheads and similar other overheads. And similarly, when you do capital efficiency, you look at capital efficiency, that time you need to look at your leasing versus owning assets model, whether you are generating ROI, whether you are doing smart sourcing, smart buying by using digital tools, whether you are doing smart hiring doing digital tools. So to summarize, all these KPIs can be mapped into these three elements, that is revenue, operating margins, and working capital efficiency. So if an organization prepares these KPIs and works around those KPIs, I think they will be somewhere in order to successfully measure their digital journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very well said in terms of focusing on revenue, operating margin, and operational efficiency. I would like to ask the last question, and then I would like to invite a few questions from the audience. Among the panelists, my last question to Debapriya, that very often an enterprise, they turns to cloud, and Mr. Sundar articulated nicely that cloud native enterprises are disrupting. They are actually realizing the business value faster than traditional conventional organization. Now, very often these enterprises, they turn to cloud to get the cost benefit, reducing their overall operational cost. But digital transformation being a strategic move, business move, is not only about cost, it's also about value. So what's your perspective, your views and advice to the audience and the organizations that when they are traversing their journey, how they need to get value-centric? Over to you.
Okay, another very good question. So on this question, I think I have to become a little more specific. So again, I will talk out of our experience that we have been having within Oracle and working here. One driver which has been driving companies towards cloud, and it's a no-brainer, all of us know, is we have a hardware refresh coming up, or we have to buy additional hardware because my application now demands more compute, more storage, more speed. Or thirdly, I don't have a DR, I have to create a DR, so I am moving to cloud. So I'm creating my DR on cloud. This is something which has been happening very fast. Another thing which happened was, again, from our experience, we started moving EBS customers to cloud, Oracle ERP and Oracle other COTS products, Siebel, Hyperion products to cloud. Very simple catalysts to moving to cloud. But what we have noticed is, and these movements did not happen because of cost, these movements happened because of convenience and faster to the market. Now, once those happened, the next things that came up is what else can we do? So that where I think Shankar's question hinges upon is how do they see the value? So once you are on the cloud bandwagon, I would rather say, you now get open to a huge amount of possibilities. The biggest possibility that comes in front of you is integration. Are you being able to integrate well with other applications? Are you being able to assimilate data from other sources to create a single source of truth? Cloud gives you much more feasibility, much more flexibility, much more agility to do so. So that's another big kick which has come around. Thirdly, companies who have been into manufacturing, into IoT and IoT things, Internet of Things, companies who are into, we have customers like who do large amount of fleet management, vehicle tracking systems, even companies who are into microfinancing, they create a lot of data. So, one is that SCADA. The power companies, the SCADA and the IoTs throw off a lot of data. Finance companies, microfinance companies get a lot of data from the field on a regular basis from their workforce. Those data needs to be assimilated, churned, sliced and diced, and then almost real-time information needs to be given back to the field force as well as the management for the decision how the business happens the very next day. This became a second biggest driver for people looking beyond simple hardware replacement, DR, or a ERP on cloud, then to get into the cloud big time. So that, as you see, as you do that, the whole value chain goes up, right? You have been now getting more and more out of the cloud than simply keeping your data on cloud and having a good night's sleep. Another big area which came into play after that is what else could you get out of cloud? Now, people who have been working in the public sector space have been very much concerned about data. And mind you, let me tell you this very confidently, I'm sure Sundar, coming from my same place, you will also agree, that the amount of security that cloud provides today on-prem, it's very difficult to get that kind of security, that quality of security. So another big question came up is keeping data secure. So it's turned, the table has turned. When people thought of, moving data to cloud will make it insecure, to a position where data on cloud will be more secure than if I am keeping it on my data center. So that's the latest, big thing, that change we are seeing. And thanks to the technologies that have come up, the various innovations that have been brought out by the cloud vendors, that today data is much more secure. So security played another big role into moving to cloud, and that's what another big kick I think is happening today. Biggest motivator today is keeping data secure and making it available at 24/7 for the users to use at the end of the day. Going ahead in future, I also see a very big change when it comes to, the data protection bill which will come into play. And all companies across the country will have to comply to data protection bill. The data protection bill is being explained, it's getting demystified, more and more clarifications are coming out from the ministry. Personal data, non-personal data, what you can keep, what you cannot keep. Think of a situation where you will have to do away with data which is at rest at your back in stores, storages. I don't know if they are still in tape libraries, but somewhere in storages you have them. You have to start erasing data, historical data, to be compliant to DPDP. It's it's scary. So how will you do that? The only way out, I think, is moving to cloud, using the features that that you get on cloud. I'm not talking it has to be Oracle or anything like that, but it can be anything. There are so many ways that you can manage this in cloud. So that's another big driver which will push everybody to cloud. And last but not the least, carbon footprint, reduction of pollution levels within your company. You will start getting credit points for that. Nowadays, balance sheets in MCA have your star ratings mentioned. So that will create a very big difference going ahead. So that is these are the things which will happen in the future as we go ahead. Shankada?
Thank you so much. I think you talked about two important things. One is the data security, but how do we improve the data veracity? How do we help removing the dark data to help the organization to gather insight, which is so useful, so important for decision making and faster decision making that you talked about, and glad that you also touched upon that, the ESG, the sustainability part of it, which is very, very important as part of the overall goal from the digital transformation. So before I conclude, I would like to invite a couple of questions from the audience. So any question? Yeah, there is a hand up. Can we get the mic to him?
This is for Mr. Bhattacharya, really. My name is Jaideep. So I come from the Tata family. I've been part of the G Predicts story, and so I wanted to ask you a very pointed question. So you mentioned about the G Predicts being obvious failure because of the buy-in from the customers and the internal organizations. But being part of that partnership ecosystem, I have noticed another one thing, that G Predicts was more trying to act the big daddy of the gatekeeper to the IIoT world. So I would like to ask your perspective on that, and if yes, elaborate, if no, why. And a kind of additional question to that is that this whole digital economy, this whole digital universe is probably very fragmented. as is the digital economy. So when we talk about the connected universe through digital, the world is evolving towards a kind of a data integration, insights integration. So I would like to perspective on that from the perspective of G predicts as to why it failed. So kind of a loaded question, but
Yeah, so see, this was obviously just an example to explain that while one initiative could have actually been really successful, subject to certain factors, a lot of initiatives in today's digital era are not that successful because of those factors creeping in. So there comes the importance of the traditional leaders running legacy businesses, accepting the new initiatives internally. Secondly, the mindset of even the team, including a sales force. Any kind of sales force would be vital for growth of any organization or initiative. So if the sales force mindset remains box-centric and cannot be quickly reskilled towards outcomes centric and services centric, then it becomes difficult. Thirdly, if the customers are not really convinced about a certain initiative, then to run this kind of a platform, I'm sure you know much more about this, obviously customer data becomes vital. So unless we get customer data, it's difficult to scale up such platforms. And if the customers are not confident, then obviously there would be issues in sharing data. And obviously, finally, the internal articulation of the management's vision, which actually should go down, trickle down to every level. Unless these things happen, running these kind of initiatives are difficult. And becoming gatekeepers or something, obviously, see, some companies' objective may be like that. I mean, I don't see anything wrong in that, as long as it creates value to the entire community, as long as it creates value to the customers, and it creates value to the other partners in the ecosystem. There, if it creates some constraints for other firms or customers, then it becomes difficult to succeed. So that's all that I wanted to say.
thank you.
Thank you so much for asking the question. We can take one last question. Anyone else? I think there's a hand up right at the back. Can we get the mic to him? And it's truly, I'm glad that, the session is a bit heavy in terms of the topic, but, multiple questions, interesting questions are coming up. So thanks to the audience. Over to you.
Okay, so my question is to Mr. Nandan. He mentioned that when we go to recruit, we won't be seeing, we won't be entertaining people with skills in COBOL or Python. COBOL, I understand it's an old language, though it still has a lot of applications in US Department of Commerce. But Python is the most happening language right now. So how do you think that you're not looking for somebody with Python skills?
No. Okay. So if you are saying that Python is, no, so I never meant Python is an outdated language. I'm simply trying to say is, the point that I try to make is, you need to really look at what are the technologies that are going to rule the roost and the technologies that will be used in the future when you go to recruit people for in the short term and in the long term. Maybe as immediate requirements, you still have Python as the go-ahead, for you for tool for your web-based applications, but there are some more things that are happening beyond that. So that's the point that I was trying to make. So if Python has caused a little heartburn for you, don't mind me for that. But that's what the future is going to. As Shankar also said, upskilling, getting the right skill set, and predicting the skill set of the future is something which is extremely important for CIOs and and the C-suite people to really decide what they want to do today. Because otherwise you will end up with a hall, you don't know what to do with that. You convert it into a canteen. The idea, that story that I was telling you. So it's extremely important. Okay, yeah, COBOL is fine, but Python, I never meant a heartburn for that. I just mentioned it for that. Thank you, if I have answered your question.
Thank you. So I would take the opportunity now to summarize and conclude the session. And I'll tell you one interesting thing. For one of the Fortune 10 client, And of course, I would not be able to name the client, but I do have the opportunity to work with CXOs of Fortune 100 and Fortune 10 clients. So we were in the 30th floor in Singapore a couple of weeks back. The person recently assumed as CTO in that organization, and she took the transition from her predecessor. And one thing she told that, last time when I met the previous CTO, I told her that every technology, every business is actually driven by technology. And she has completed the transition. This new CTO was asking me that this time what's new for me. And I kind of told her that no longer I'm going to tell you that technology is going to drive your business. I'm going to tell you that every business is a technology business. Being a mining company, your business is no different. And she was very inquisitive about how mining business can be a technology business. And I articulated that with one of the startup called Kitos, because all of you would realize that in a mining company, the water quality is very important, because ultimately they discharge the affluent, right? They discharge the effluent. In foreign countries is a very, very stringent regulation. And, however, the stringent, intensive manpower you deploy to monitor the quality before discharging the water outside the plant, if something out of 100 different parameters, if something is outside the permissible limit, you end up paying millions of dollars fine, right? And I was introducing a startup called Kitos, whose tagline is water quality at your fingertips. And I said, leveraging IoT, you can bring down your water monitoring cost by 80%, simultaneously achieve 24/7 to 365, maintaining the water quality standard within the environment norm, and thereby making your fines, which they are paying to the authority, to zero, absolute zero. And think about the value which they would have in terms of reducing the cost for the maintenance, and as well as improving the bottom line. So this is the power of technology, and that's why I said, every business today is a technology business. So with that note, with that positive note, I would like to conclude the session. I would like to thank once again to CII Eastern Region for organizing this platform, this seminar, which allowed us to discuss this very important topic. I'm thankful, and my gratitude to all the eminent panelists for spending time with us and sharing their important perspective. And last but not the least, I'm thankful to each and every audience, because you have made this session is about you, the engagement, asking those interesting questions, helps us to kind of talk about some perspective which, enriches us, our thinking as well as a technology. So with that note, I would like to conclude. Thank you. It has been a wonderful day today, throughout the day, listening multiple different subjects about this topic. And we would stay connected through the sessions lined up for tomorrow as well. So thanks to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Shankar. Just for the benefit of the audience, we would be having technology clinics tomorrow post-lunch. Anybody having any issue, we have the experts available, so you can talk one-to-one. That would be post-lunch. So you can think of some problem statements that you have, which you can share, and maybe you can get the answer also. So just for your information. And so before we end, we have some mementos to give. Sanjada, if you can kindly hand over some. To Shankar Ghosh, session moderator. Thank you, Shankar. To Sundar Ram. To Sugumar. Thank you. To Manjit Nayak. Thank you, Manjit. To, to Chiranjeev Bhattacharya. Thank you, Chiranjeev. And to Devapriya Nandan. Thank you, Devapriya, for everything. So with this, we come to the close of the day one. Tomorrow, we'll start the session from 10:30 onwards. Again, I'm reminding, we would be, forming a CIO forum. So anybody who's interested to join, you can let us know so that we can include you. And if you have any problem statement, you can, sit over the technology clinic and can get the answers maybe. So thank you so much. So see you tomorrow again.